I'm DJ Diya Anantharaman, music director and radio host of Unearthly Machine here at KUCR Riverside 88.3, and I'm here with the magical Spelling. Her upcoming album, Portrait of My Heart, is set to release on the 28th of March via Sacred Bones Records. We have convened today to chat. Good afternoon, Spelling. It's lovely to see you. How are you doing on this beautiful March afternoon?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in LA for the week, just doing some stuff out here. And I'm doing well. March is kind of a time of the year that I honestly struggle with, even though it's like springtime and there's good energy. It's also kind of a hustle month, and just notice a lot of like things needing to be renewed or maintained and just purging emotionally and like physically and spiritually. So it's an active time of the year. And a lot of times I'm just like, I'm not ready to come out. I'm not ready to come out of hibernation. I'm still like wanting to hold on to the like pace of winter, but I'm looking forward to the little moments of sunshine I've been getting have been really good for my skin and for my health. I'm just like trying to look forward to the later spring and tour and all of that. So
Absolutely. And we will touch on tour later, where I'm going to ask you a bit more about some cool venues and whatnot. But let's start from the beginning. I did some digging and learned that you were a graduate of UC Berkeley's MFA program in art in 2019, and that you had released critically acclaimed music prior to that, like the album Pantheon of Me. I'd love to know more about before that. Can you tell me a little bit more about your musical background and how it informs your artistic philosophy to this point?
yeah, so prior to really committing to making music, I think when I really committed was like 24, well, putting out Pantheon of Me in 2017. So like the 2 years before that, I was experimenting. 2015 and 16 were really experimental. I still was trying to get my bearings as far as like my vocal presentation and all the basics. I was teaching myself. Um, and what got me to that point, I've always felt a connection with storytelling and with writing. I went, to undergrad at Berkeley as well for to get a degree in English literature. And it's not like that was like my big passion or anything. It just kind of was like the option that felt the most like it had the most potential with me not knowing what the heck I wanted for my future. So
Mhm.
I went with that, and it ended up being one moment among many that I think put me towards this path of ultimately being a songwriter and being a musician. And but before then, I wasn't really making music at all. Like most of my life, I at Berkeley in undergrad, I started doing like writing club stuff and like poetry groups and started experimenting with my hand with writing. And I've always loved writing. I was the type of kid that like kept so many like journals and scrapbooks and like was really creative in that department. And so then I started using a loop pedal kind of like just to make these sound poems and soundscapes. And
Mhm.
people were like, you have a really good voice, and I never connected with that. I just never thought of like I thought like I could hold a tune and I can sing well-ish, but not enough where it's like you're gonna make music like in that way. So getting some like like ego boosts from friends and like doing little shows and stuff sort of just set me off, and I started to do those sound poems in a lot of like little house show, like basement show, punk show stuff in Oakland.
Mhm.
And people just were like gassing me up. Honestly, that's what happened. And it felt cool to just be a part of that scene. And it inspired me to make more like songs, and I would put them on SoundCloud, and that led to Pantheon of
Yeah.
Me.
Totally. And much of your past work has been experimental, spacious, fantastical, and genre expansive. And I can definitely see how that background in literature would play into that. I can
Yeah.
see you leaning into rock and avant-pop sensibilities with the singles that are currently out from Portrait of My Heart. And across releases, I can definitely hear your constant artistic shape shifting, which is really exciting as a listener, especially as a listener who's been kind of in tune with your work for a few years now. Can you tell me about your creative process on Portrait of My Heart, along with its sonic and emotional landscapes, and how they show up through some of your songwriting, vocal, and instrumental choices?
Sure, yeah. This process for Portrait of My Heart, there was something about, in contrast to the turning wheel, that I thought things were simplifying. I thought, for one, I'm not making it and releasing it during a pandemic, so it can't get much harder than that.
Mhm.
And then I thought the energy of the tracks, the rock influence, some sort of like more than ever, a little bit more aligning with this type of genre than usual. So like
Mhm.
it felt like there was a sort of like touchstone there as far as like orienting the sound. I know it's going to be guitar based. I know like the songs aren't going to be as like long form. So there were things that I thought were going to be a lot simpler than when I was working on the turning wheel, but it still ended up being this like really difficult process. Like it still ended up in its own way. And I think mostly to do with identity and like confronting my own identity in a way that I hadn't really done in previous albums. Like it felt like I'm being a lot more vulnerable. The songs, the lyrics, the subjects are dealing with matters of the heart and intimacy, romance. And I think in like a really human way, and I think with like Turning Wheel and Pantheon and Maisie Fly, there's like all romantic and fantastical elements, but it's a little more abstract and it's like thinking of like cosmic scale sort of ideas of love. And this album deals with like just me and like my own real feelings and like crushes and being devastated
Mhm.
by having a broken heart and all that kind of stuff. Um and that was rough because it's like I hear the songs, certain songs trying to like forge the lyrics and relive these experiences that I'm drawing from was very emotional.
Yeah.
And so, but it felt really cathartic to push through. And to me, the like the doing the cover song, My Bloody Valentine, sometimes was really like woo, that song spoke to the ambiguity, I think, that makes romance so hard, where it's like
Mhm.
when you don't know what's next or what's coming, and you're kind of just sort of like in this state of yearning and uncertainty. So that song, doing the cover of it put me in that mode, and I'm just like, oh, it felt so good to finish it. I felt like I could like package that up and like move on with my life, like kind of like out of this era of the last couple years where I've been experiencing a lot of these like romantic highs and lows. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Totally. And
Yeah.
with your academic background in the arts and years of experience making avant-garde music, how would you say Portrait of My Heart is influenced by your past releases?
hmm I mean, I think sometimes I underestimate how freaky I'm still gonna do things. Like to me, I like look at this album and I'm like, yeah, it's like a rock album, but it's really not. Like it's got all kinds of stuff
Mhm.
sprinkled in, and it's still it's still like spellified, like it's really whimsical. Like a song like Destiny Arrives, I think draws from more of the spirit of the turning wheel stuff, and it's got that like the like avant edge to it. And I try to like it's impossible for me to not put that in the music, as much as I like if I sat down and tried to write like a regular song, it's just not gonna happen. It's
Mhm.
not gonna happen. Yeah.
Definitely. And when I listen to your music, I'm definitely reminded of the avant-garde dramatic vocal influences of artists like Kate Bush or Bjork. Whenever I play your music in mixes, I tend to sandwich it
Yeah.
between artists like that because I feel like it just fits perfectly. And I also noticed some hymnal influences, which I've read might be from your background. with Catholic traditions. And I can definitely see Gothic elements in your work as well, with the stunning, smokier parts of your vocal range. And I love your vocal style and how it shape shifts along with the music you make, endlessly bending to sort of fit the nooks and crannies of any genre or sound you explore. And I'd like to know what were some of the main inspirations for Portrait of My Heart? And this could be other music, media, literature, film, spiritual occurrences, religious epiphanies, portals to alternate realities, etc.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the compliment about the shape shifting and something I really enjoy doing. It makes me happy to feel surprised by what I make, and that's kind of always the sign that I'm on the right track. Like if I sit down and I like try to make something, I'm usually not gonna like it. Like it has to be sort of transmitted to me, like a transmission, like a radio signal, something I pick up on, and I'm like, this exists outside of me, and now I'm just the vessel for it. And it's interesting. You're saying how like Kate Bush or Bjork are kind of like with there's like a maybe like a Venn diagram there as far as like style or approach. And
Hmm.
I was in the car yesterday listening to Cibo Matto, who's I
Hmm.
love their music, and it started shuffling other songs, and then it started playing an old like I was like, why do I recognize this? Oh my God, it was like a jump scare that it was my song from Maisie Fly called
Hmm.
Dirty Desert Dreams, and I haven't listened to that song in forever because I don't really go back and actively listen to old things like once it's out of the like release era. I kind of just don't and just perform them. But that one doesn't ever really get performed and people request it a lot. Like you should play Dirty Desert Dreams. And so hearing it alongside Cibo Mato's stuff and like kind of just like mixed in, I was reminded like, oh wow, like that was a big influence at the time and like thinking about how now that influence is still there, like I'm still going back and listening to Siva Mato and like thinking about like how like just the art rock core has always been a theme throughout what I make. And for Portrait of My Heart, I like to listen to a lot of Muse,
Hmm.
Smashing Pumpkins. What else? I went back and listened to like some of the more like metalcore things that I was into in high school, like System of a Down and
Hell
just
yeah.
yeah. And like trying to just glean what I thought were the things from that sound that I thought were super unique. Like for System of a Down, like Serge, I feel like the way his operatic vocals just like do this like waterfall kind of thing where they layer over each other and it's like
Yeah.
like the circus kind of like circus atmosphere and he's like a ringleader and I just like creates this whole like visual theater in my mind when I would listen to it. So I, gonna bring some of that with the drama and there's so much. Blonde Redhead, also a big, huge influence as far as textures. When I'm like, I want to make rock songs, but I want the textures to sound really prominent. And I think they do a great job of that all the time with like how they mix in synths and the way that their drum sounds work. So that was a big, like when I worked with the mixing engineer, I sent him a bunch of Blonde Redhead tracks that are like reference points for how I want stuff to sound. And then the pop sensibility for sure, no doubt. Like that was
Hmm.
the biggest one where Return of Saturn. They have this reoccurring synth noise through like almost all the songs. It pops up, and I love how they did that. And I tried to kind of replicate it on my song Waterfall. It's
Hmm.
got you can hear in the background, like in the choruses, this synth that sounds a lot like the synth on like Ex-Girlfriend or a few different ones on that album.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Awesome. That's really interesting. I wasn't thinking about like the kind of alt rock influences when it came to System of a Down. That's really interesting, especially the vocal influences. And I kind of see what you mean with the vocal layering, especially with a lot of your discography. It's been very vocally adventurous and things like that. I just love just how immersive it is, and I kind of see what you mean with the System of a Down comparison. And I'm also interested in the album artwork for Portrait of My Heart. I'd love to know the story behind the photo and why it was chosen to represent this album, especially with a lot of your past work having kind of similarly, again, immersive, mystical, and ethereal self-portrait type of photos.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with how that came together. This artist, he's a photographer and artist based in Oakland. His name
Mhm.
is Q, and he's been a friend of mine just in the community for a long time, but he worked with this artist, Liv, and did album artwork for her. And I'm like, whoa, this is so sensual and um, stuff that just kind of gives an impression of a feeling. Like that's what I kind of always want to go for. It's like it's a portrait, but it's more so like feels like just so impressionistic and um he yeah, and he did some stuff with Twirling Moi
Mhm.
for his album art, and it's also same like this like a lot of like things implied, and I like that, like leaving things open-ended and the visuals to be interpreted and abstract. So I asked him to shoot for me, and it was this like 14 hour, it was like a crazy experience. We shot it in my house and
Mhm.
just kind of like made this big black backdrop. And it took forever. So like I think it was like reaching, we were all sort of reaching this point of like we're kind of like getting delusional because we've been working for so long. And sometimes that like breaks down the wall where it feels like you exit like into this, I don't know, this state where it's like, who knows, like we're letting go of the reins here, like whatever happens, happens. And the image came out like way later in the
Mhm.
shoot. And I love that it resembled like an eye and also like a heart itself, and like with like the chambers of a heart, it just like had
Mhm.
that way. He used a prism to kind of like reflect it, and it's a film photo.
Mhm.
So it was really special. Film quality always like ends up creating this extra like layer of texture and noise that I like. And then on the back, the hand with the butterfly, like we got that at the very end, and I'm so happy we captured that. It was like an idea at the last minute where I'm like, I want to portray like um, something really soft and like optimistic, and he had the idea to like let's make it look, like have this butterfly floating in your hand. And um so yeah, I just like try to like put these little symbols in there that I think represent, and like there's like the Six of Cups that's like
Mhm.
um for like in tarot, like the cup is the suit of love, and the
Mhm.
Six of Cups represents like yeah, just like romance and love. And so we threw that in there, just yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting, especially with the tarot. I'm also interested in the music videos for Portrait of My Heart. The video for the title track is intimate and reflective while carrying the same fantastical quality that reappears throughout your discography, with the ominous portal swirling on the bedroom floor. And then the music video for Destiny Arrives is more isolated and features you calling out above the waters of an unearthly, liminal world. And across the music videos for this album, I noticed a common theme of introspection coupled with theatrical and supernatural aesthetics. Can you tell me a little bit more about the choices to include these visuals in your music videos and how they function in tandem with your album's themes?
Yeah, it's kind of just defines my whole like MO as a person. I think I've the tensions that I grapple with often are this tendency and natural state of isolation and finding a lot of like comfort in solitude, and the sensation that I can't shake of feeling like an outsider to the world, or like even in things that I'm a part of, like as far as the music industry or like my friendships and relationships, still kind of always dealing with this sense of having one foot in or out, or like feeling alienated. And then the supernatural qualities tend to like, yeah, reflect I think the opposite side of that, where it's like I feel um like the pursuit of just being a person, like being trapped in a body, like those sorts of the feelings of like, yeah, I feel uncomfortable, or like tr just like a the tensions of just being a woman and being a body and having those physical like attributes that feel like sometimes they're going against how I feel inside my head. And so those are things that I always like express with the music and Portrait of My Heart, the music video. It's kind of going into like, this sensation of like having writer's block or like having a creative block or obstacle that you're like stuck in. And the portal that I'm entering in is kind of like this opportunity to like exit that state of like conflict, like inner like creative conflict. And um we wanted Destiny Arrives almost feels like kind of like coming out the other side into this like another universe maybe where that portal was or is. It's like they're very different visually, but they're still kind of kindred, like you're saying, like kindred concepts of like um yeah, just like entering another dimension to have this sense of like self-reflection or existential reflection.
Yeah, definitely. And you're
Mhm.
touring. So, what are some of the venues and locations you look forward to playing at the most?
I am. I'm really excited for Chicago, Lincoln Hall. That'll be on my birthday on May 13th. So that'll be a
Mhm.
fun way to like celebrate my birthday. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to everything. I mean, there's a few places I haven't ever headlined, like Detroit. That's gonna be cool.
Mhm.
I'm excited to go back to New Orleans. I just love the spooky energy out there, the gothic energy. It's always a good like what do you call it? Like last year we toured too, is this kind of midway point that kind of revitalizes my energy. So I'm excited
Mhm.
that's happening again. New York is going to be awesome. There's so much to look forward to, and the Terragram. I've been spending a lot of time in LA over the last couple years, like every month almost. So I'm stoked to like play here. It's been a long time. And the Terragram is a really cool room. So Los Angeles is definitely up there.
Totally. I'm hoping to make that show. I hope I can. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk gear. So, what would you say is the most essential piece of gear to the particular sound of Portrait of My Heart?
Hmm. I have to talk to Wyatt, who plays guitar in the band. We experimented like we like were dialing in guitar tones for a long time when we were recording, when we had like a studio session for like a week um in 2023, and I feel like I drove him crazy, just especially trying to get the guitar tones for Portrait of My Heart.
Mhm.
And you can hear it's like we ended up doing kind of like a combo of things. But he used this beautiful vintage, like this pink guitar. I can't remember. I'm not even like a gear person, so I'm gonna ask him later what we ended up using, but it had this mind of its own. I love vintage stuff. I love stuff that has history or a story to it. And
Totally.
it's a 70s like beautiful baby pink guitar, and it kept falling out of tune, but it delivered this like kind of twang to it that I was in love with and wanted to kind of carry over. I like things to feel like not so perfect. So I was like, I like that it's kind of drifty and twangy, and he we kept it and like I think layered it with another guitar as well. And like we used that on the song Drain also. So I feel like it was giving that like just that grunge attitude and affect. That's really, really cool in my opinion. And we use this weird pedal called distortion on a lot of things. And it
Mhm.
is like we were cracking up over the word distortion. It's like
Yeah,
so funny to us. And anytime we were like stuck on something not sounding right, we're like, let's hook it up to the distortion. Like that'll fix it.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, for the last question, if you were stranded on a desert island, or perhaps that big pillar you stand on in that one music video we talked about, and could only take three pieces of gear with you, what would they be and why?
Hmm. I, wow, that would be, I need something that I would want to have like, I just bring the microcorg everywhere all the time because
Hmm.
my fave and it's easy to get ideas out on it. So I would definitely have my microquark scent and my I use a sequencer it's called a square pyramid, and I can use that to program like lots of layers of scent stuff. And then I would need, I guess I would need something. I could have my laptop with me. That way I can make little songs and record them and on my little island to myself. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me. This has been really wonderful, and it's really wonderful to just learn about your process and your influences, especially as someone who's been listening for quite a bit now, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all your questions. And
Yeah,
yeah, hopefully see you at the show or one of the shows.
totally. Thank you.